Hello, it's Phillip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. Today I'm looking at the vexed issue of pensions. Pensions are one of the more boring subjects that one has to look at. It's something a lot of people shy away from, but it's an important area and has become much more important during the most recent of the many serious financial crises which the United Kingdom faces on a pretty regular basis. Now, what we've got here is a most important book, which is called the Pensions Pocket Book, and it's for 2015. It's been published by an organisation called Economic and Financial Publishing Limited in association with Aon Hewitt. And it's an interesting book. Let me show it to you. There are some interesting features. It's a very small book. You can see that. There's the front of it, spine, and then the back. As you see, it's very light paperback, runs to 250 odd pages. Let me just show you the back of it, because on the inside cover you've got very useful addresses. That's the back cover. On the front cover you've got the online information with codes and everything else. You have a username and then you have a password and everything else to get into the website. The front of the book is there. You can see very clearly what it shows. Notes about how to use the book. Then there's a little bit about Aon Hewitt. Then you have the contents, which are set out very clearly in various sections, running all the way through. You can see there, I'll just give you some idea of how much there is involved here. Lots of different section numbers all together. Then, there we go, still running through there, up to some reference points at the end. We get to what is called section 30 rather, on what's called the international section. Then you get what are called reference sections underneath that, dealing in fact with economic and demographic data, investment data and so forth. And then you have a series of appendices right at the back. Then there's an important foreword which is always worth reading, and there's a nice picture of Michael Clare from Aon Hewitt. And then you start right in with the first section and a huge amount of data. That's particularly helpful about the state pension age, because it gives you dates from your date of birth as to when the pension will accrue and when it actually will kick in. Going through pensions taxation in the middle of the book. Then if we go right to the back of the book, you've got a most useful appendix, which is, you have abbreviations in Appendix 1. Then Appendix 2 is a glossary of terms, which again I think is extremely helpful, because that gives you some idea of what you're dealing with, because it's a complex area. Then you have compound interest rates, tables. Then you've got, after that's Appendix 3, then annuity factors and useful websites 4 and 5. And then that's the end of the book. Those are the detail points. It's a very light book, very helpful. Scheme closure and wind up, for instance, there's just picking something. It's a very, very small book, very neat, very compact, and I've been most impressed with it because it's not an easy subject to either teach or deal with. And I've had quite a lot of experience of dealing with pensions over the years, trying to fathom how the system works, because as with much that we have in the state system, with pensions and everything else, they make it far more complicated than it need be. And most people have problems with mathematics as it is, and this just makes the thing even worse, where what we really need is some form of simplicity. Having got that off my chest, let me say a little bit about what we say about this book. My wife Elizabeth and I talked about the book, and we decided to give our review the following title: An accessible and concise pocket guide to the latest developments in UK pensions with a companion online service. And I think that online service is first class, so thank you very much for linking it in. There are a lot of books today which have a companion website, whatever you want to call it, something to link into the book, to take account of big changes that are taking place, because we're living in a 24/7 era now, where the book takes a long time to print and publish and distribute, and of course a lot of information is readily available on the internet, so you do need to have that extra channel for the information, and that's what you've got with this book. It's a collaborative work between Economic and Financial Publishing Limited and Aon Hewitt, and it brings together in one handy pocket volume all you need to know about the basics of our current pensions framework in the United Kingdom. And as Michael Clare, whose picture is in the book, he's the Aon Hewitt's UK country director, he points out in the foreword that the 2014 budget contains the most fundamental reform to the way people access their pensions for almost a century. And I think that's right. What we're going to have after the 7th of May 2015, I have no idea, and I'm recording this prior to the result of the general election. However, we did have the Finance Act 2014, and that has paved the way for some very substantial changes. I suspect there will be more on the way, so keep a lookout for it. And of course the online site will help you too. We're reminded here, of course, for example, that as individuals we can now take advantage, as of 2014, with this new flexibility which allows us to use our pension pot to purchase retirement savings in lump sum form with no further compulsion to use them to purchase an annuity. And that's been an important step forward as far as many people are concerned. Some, of course, don't like it too much, but that is an important change which has occurred. Aon Hewitt, by the way of reminder to you, is a global company operating in 90 countries worldwide, which specialises in human resource solutions, that's personnel management as it was, with a range of services that include retirement, investment management, healthcare, compensation and more. So it's got a very important staff-facing role, if I can put it that way, and we are indebted to them for producing this pocket guide, in my view. This little pocket book, therefore, on pensions, for which Aon has obviously provided consultancy, is an excellent publishing initiative in our view, and don't let its pocket-sized format fool you. Its explanation of the current state of UK pensions manages to be detailed yet succinct on a subject which commonly is considered so abstruse as to be quite beyond the comprehension of all but specialists in the field. What I said in my introductory remarks, in fact. Its aim is obviously to demystify the intricacies of pensions and present them, despite their complexity, in an understandable and accessible manner, and they do just that. Over a total of 30 sections, which I showed you at the beginning, and about 300 pages, believe it or not, every pertinent aspect of pensions, from equal treatment to contracting out, is covered, with relevant legislation referred to throughout. And of course that's the gift of the online treatment. You can update depending on what happens before another edition comes out. There's a separate section on UK pensions case law, plus one series in the appendices on useful websites, and another containing an absolutely indispensable glossary. And I thought the glossary in particular was great, because it does assist with the terms that are used in what is effectively a specialist area. Let me conclude by saying it would certainly be fair to call this a first port of call reference work on pensions, which specialist lawyers, human resource professionals and generally members of the public will find, I think, extremely helpful and time saving. We note too that by buying the book, it does link in, as I say, to the Pensions Pocket Book online service. You've got the details, just to repeat, at the front inside cover of how to get online, and that provides additional data and information which of course will be updated. The publication date is cited at 2015, but as I've said before with all of these books, you are looking at changes that are taking place and running through. There's a book again. There's a bit of information about Aon Hewitt at the back. You can probably see that there. Just opening it up in the middle, one of the section numbers. Disclosure of pension scheme information right in the middle. You see the detail. It's very narrow, very small type. So you probably may need a magnifying glass in some respects to see some of this. But it's reasonably easy to read. And I've liked the fact that so much information is produced. This is the international section at the back. You can see the tables they've got there. Then if we go to the front again, you've got things like the state pension credits and so forth. It does actually start off with the state pension age, which I said before. There's the picture of the main contributor there. But I did think that particular table was extremely helpful. Anyway, thank you very much to all concerned for producing this pocket book. It's a first-class book, and if you've got any queries, it's not an expensive book at all. If you've got any queries, this is something you need to go to very quickly indeed. So thank you to all those involved in producing it. It's extremely helpful for both the practitioner and the layman together. So it's got a very wide appeal. Thank you to all. Bye-bye.